everyone. It is Brick by Brick with Maegan and Leah, and we have a very special guest here today, Miss Heather Marie Van Cleave. How are you doing?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much for having me here.
You look fabulous, and you're a fabulous, amazing person anyway. It's not just your looks. I mean, you're just a genuinely warm person. For those that don't know out there, Heather was Mrs. Virginia.
Miss Virginia.
Miss Virginia. And Heather actually has, though, like this crazy backstory that we're going to let Heather talk more about. But I met Heather through Leah. And we were just chatting, you know, before the show today about how it's so crazy how we all end up meeting each other through each other. And I've really loved everybody I've gotten to meet through Leah, and Heather's no exception to that. I got to hang out with you a little bit when Leah had her birthday party at one of our other guests' shindigs. We got to hang out at that amazing Airbnb.
That was really cool.
Got to meet your husband there too, so that was really cool. It's cool when you get to meet a person on a personal level a little bit more, you know. So that's, I think, what's really cool too about our podcast is we get to introduce some really cool people to our audience, and you are no exception to that, Heather. So thank you for being here today. You're an author, advocate, speaker, former Miss Virginia, and a domestic violence survivor. So I mean, that's like quite a resume right here. Tell us a little bit about your background, your childhood, your life, like how we got to Heather today.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you guys. And Jane of all trades, master of none. I look at myself as a favored and gifted woman. God has blessed me with many things to be able to share with the world. And I believe that when we have gifts and talents, we're supposed to share it, not just keep it to ourselves.
That's
so I try to do things to help shine a light for others. God has put me in the spotlight a couple times, which has been great. And it's kind of funny because growing up as a young girl, I spent my school year in the States in Virginia Beach with my mom and my stepdad, and my dad and my stepmom lived in England. So I traveled to the UK every summer with my sister, and we would watch my dad on tour with the West End Broadway, Jesus Christ Superstar, Les Mis, all of these amazing shows. And I didn't realize how special that was when I was little. I was just talking to my staff earlier. I was a tomboy when I was little, believe it or not. Miss Virginia was a tomboy. And so I just enjoyed like traveling and seeing all the things.
Yeah.
So being on stage was something that I was used to seeing my parents do, but it wasn't something that I was ever comfortable doing. Didn't like to speak, didn't like to be in front. I was very shy.
Right.
And tomboy up until like freshman year of high school. And then I think I started to blossom, and I said, okay, I guess I got to start putting some makeup on and doing my hair. So
I love that.
Yeah, all the
Coming
things.
out of the shell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely came out of the shell.
Well, I love that too. You're right, because I think as children, we don't often understand like the special opportunities we have. And I'm a parent now, and you look at your children, and you're like, man, I hope someday they'll really appreciate this. And that's so cool that you were able to take, you know, a childhood experience you had, and that essentially ended up giving you some confidence to get up on the stage yourself.
Yeah.
So you would travel back and forth from the US to the UK, and that was your childhood. And then what? Then what did you do?
So I ended up traveling. I went to Chicago to go to school and was working with, back in the day, Bally Total Fitness was the gym of choice. And so I worked with them as their operations supervisor, and loved all the things, and was actually able to help them do a joint venture with an English company.
Wow.
Called the Holmes Place. And so I helped them with their joint venture and would travel back and forth from the UK still, and ended up just living life, and never thought that I'd be a parent, and never thought that I'd be a mom. I always thought I'd be a businesswoman, successful, doing all the things. Never had pageantry in the back of my mind. I had done modeling and some acting as like small little things when I was younger, but it was never a passion of mine.
Right.
And then fast forward, ended up being a single parent with my son in my 20s, got married, had 2 more girls, and ended up in a very abusive marriage, became a survivor of domestic violence, and didn't really know how to get out. And they say that women that are in a domestic violence situation or marriage or relationship, it takes them up to 7 times to leave.
Yeah.
And I experienced that firsthand. I had a tracking device put on my car. I had bruises on me all the time. It was very, very, very violent.
Wow.
And it got to a point where the pastor and the counselor had said, if you don't get out, you're going to end up dead, and your kids have no one. So I literally had to go in hiding and filed for divorce, and it took 2.5 years. And, you know, it was just one of those things that I experienced firsthand. And I'd love to say that that was the last abusive relationship that I got into, but it kept happening and getting into relationships where I was mistreated because I was used to it. And sometimes you get used to dysfunction because that's your normal.
Right.
And so I had to really, truly know my worth and learn how to know my worth and learn how to respect myself to expect better respect from men.
Yeah.
And I tried to use that as my platform. Mental health awareness is a huge part of that because as a woman, you get depressed, you question yourself, sometimes you're gaslighted, and all these things that women struggle with in these abusive relationships are hard to go through by yourself.
Yeah.
And so I had counseling that helps me get through it and really helped me build my life back up. So that's where the domestic violence platform and the mental health awareness in 2009 as a single parent started talking about that globally, and traveled to Romania and traveled to Brazil and did it here in the States and just was on a mission to help women that were struggling.
How old were your kids so you had a child from a first marriage and then you had two other children with this man who was abusive to you. And how old were your children when all this was happening?
My children were very young, and my son, actually, I wasn't married. I was dating a guy, and he didn't want me to have the pregnancy. He wanted me to abort, and I said absolutely not. And so he wanted nothing to do with it. And so I raised my son by myself.
Wow.
I named him Maximus Alexander, which means the greatest leader of men, because I wanted him to have a legacy. And no matter what happened, I knew that I could raise him by myself and be fine.
Yeah.
And then I met my husband, who I had the two girls with, after Max was about 1 year old. So they were all under the age of 5 as a single parent.
That is just crazy.
And thankfully, by the grace of God, I tell people, they're like, you look so young to have 3 kids, because now they're 20, 21, and 23. And I had them all before I turned 30. So for someone who wasn't supposed to be able to bear children, I had 3. And then I said, okay, doctor, I need you to cut, tie, and zip that off, because I'm done. This is a lot, but I love my children. And they really have given me the perseverance to keep going.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think I'm a mother. Leah's a mother. We talk about this a lot. I think the why is so often your children, right?
Yes.
Like the why. I know you're a cancer survivor. I'm a cancer survivor. And when I was sick, I had 2 pictures they had drawn on my wall when I would roll over and wake up in the morning. It was the first thing I always saw was 2 drawings they had done that said, I love you, mommy. And like just things like that, because that's your why when you're feeling like crap or you're getting beaten up or whatever in life, right? Like everybody has to have a why. If you don't have children, I'm sure you have another why out there, anybody watching.
Yes.
But like, I agree with you. I think that can be a really big superpower that you have. And kudos to you.
Thank you.
My God, because I feel like you're right. I do know other women that have been in abusive situations, unfortunately, and I think the getting out is the hardest part. And then I also feel like there's this shame, and
There is.
so for you to go around and
Layers to it.
advocate, it's really crazy. You feel like you've done something wrong, or and
that's part of the abuse. The men that are typically narcissistic will put you down so many times to say it's your fault, and that's where the gaslighting comes in. And there's so many other things that you don't see it at the time, because you're like, it's a haze. You're very manipulated and brainwashed.
Yeah.
And as a strong woman, people are like, how did that happen to you? Well, I'm loyal to a fault, and sometimes when you attach everything and hold everything in your heart to give to somebody, you become vulnerable, and they slowly creep in and take over.
Well, I had never been with a narcissist until my last relationship, which I'm no longer in, and it was interesting to experience that, because I had neither, and I consider myself to be a very strong female, and so are you. And so then I was reading a lot about it, and it actually, is interesting how lots of times narcissists will gravitate towards that female archetype because they want to come across that way, right?
Yeah.
And so they're going to suck all the power out of you and make you feel like you've done something wrong. So
it's unfortunate.
you are a superhero then for getting out of that. And then that leads us, you're being an advocate at this point for domestic violence.
Yeah.
But how did you get into pageantry?
So that was a whole nother ball field. I guess when I started speaking about domestic violence and mental health awareness, I started helping different people that were out there to advocate for mental health and for domestic violence. And I'd speak wherever I was called to go to. And it was kind of one of those, okay, God, where do you want me to go? Tell me where and I'll go. And I ended up meeting with a couple of fashion shows that were out in the area and started emceeing and being a spokesperson for them, and then ended up meeting up with RVA Fashion Week.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Budd is one of my besties.
I've known Jimmy forever, yeah.
I know.
And
I
Hayden.
haven't seen him in so long. Sorry, Jimmy, I missed you. But
I knew him since he was on the clubs.
I know.
I know.
Like
at
promotions
Lucky
out on the
Buddha.
street.
At Lucky Buddha downtown.
Back in the day. We were like fresh 18, 19.
I'm 42, and I will say it.
They're
Yeah.
telling
He's truly
our
a brother from
age.
another
He's
mother.
precious.
Love his parents, love his sister. They're an amazing family, the Budd family. And so I ended up helping them a lot during COVID. Like, this is when we were wearing masks and doing virtual fashion shows. I just started emceeing for them and being a spokesperson for them, and really found that I was doing a lot of that speaking and coinciding with spokesperson, that I started to help a lot of people during COVID to put a spotlight on their communities, and started going around to different communities and different businesses and saying, hey, what are you doing for mental health during COVID, and how can you help shine a light for your business and for others? And so I literally would go to different businesses and interview them and put it out there on social media and put it out there on YouTube, and just kind of was my own contributor to the community.
To the space,
and just
I
started
love
doing that more
too.
and more. And I started seeing, okay, God's given me a gift to do that. How can I help other people? And it just kind of snowballed into different things. There was a woman that that saw me, and she said, you need to be part of the pageantry system. You've got such a great platform and you speak so well. And a lot of these women that are in the pageants need to know their worth, because they're doing these pageants sometimes for the wrong reason. They need a physical crown to put on their head, but really, truly, we are all crowned already. And so my message was to help them remember their worth, know their worth before they ever receive a crown, because they are worthy regardless.
That's so true.
And Maria Bell, she planted the seed, and then a couple years later, there was another person that planted a seed. And so finally I was like, okay, what the heck, I'll give it a shot, just to be able to give these women some encouragement. It's not about me. And I went into it really, truly doing it to help encourage other women, not expecting at all to win the crown. I was older than everybody else. This is when they had opened the pageant system to all ages, and opened it. And so I was like, okay, this is kind of cool to be in my 40s and doing a pageant, but
why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I've
to
done
me,
crazier
Moore can look
things.
that good in her 50s. We can all do it.
I'm like, yeah,
right?
I jumped out of a plane. I can do this. Well, getting into it was a whole nother ball field. And I did not realize how much competition there was in there. And I'm a collaborator. I don't like competing with people. And so doing that was a whole experience that I never really realized. Yeah. But I just kept doing it. The day before the pageant, I wanted to back out. I was like, this is not my thing. I don't like it. I'm not feeling good. I'm starting to question my confidence. I'm starting to question, like, do I look good enough? And that's not how I want to feel.
You're like,
ever.
this wasn't what this was about.
And so God reminded me, I called you here for such a time as this, for a purpose. You're not going out there to be shining for you. You're shining for me, and you're helping these other women.
Yeah.
So I just said, you know what? You're right. And I calmed down, and I got on the stage. And when they called my name, I literally was in shock. I thought, surely they didn't just call my name. I was about to cheer the other girl on, Melody.
And then I'm the wild screaming in the background. Big
Like,
mouth Betty over here.
I know. I had Jimmy Budd out there, my whole family. I literally had the biggest cheer team ever.
That's amazing.
And I won. And so I was like, okay, God, so
Yeah.
this is another level of me sharing my message through the whole state of Virginia.
That's
and just went and started
awesome.
speaking everywhere. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Platforms and everything.
I mean, I think it's so cool because you really, we talked to a lot of people on the show that I feel this resounding theme of like, everything isn't always going to be perfectly planned.
No.
You're going to have to kind of ebb and flow with life, and life's going to throw you some curveballs, right? But it's really so much how you take that and what you do with that situation and make it an opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
That's also why we named our show Brick by Brick, because we find ourselves, all doing just a day at a time in certain seasons, because life can be really heavy.
Yes.
And still balanced with like wins.
Yeah.
But then you're over inside of yourself and in your inner landscape having to nurture that too, because it's like, it can be heavy. And how do you balance all the
And you start
the peace
questioning
and the
yourself.
wild
You'll start to question yourself. So like
in
the
your same
community
body.
of like-minded
Yeah.
people is so
Yeah.
important. Whether you were talking about the abuse aspect or the aspect of pageantry, or like having that community that you can kind of fall back on when you are questioning yourself, I think is so important too. So the purpose of the show was, I think, also to encourage others that even when you go through some rough times in life, like everybody's going to, right? It's like I tell my boys, I'm like, attitude's 95% of it. Like just, you're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay.
and surrender.
Yes.
And then like kind of reminding yourself of your milestones.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I learned from just my journey in life, I listened to different speakers and podcasts, and I think we all do that a fair amount. But there was one person who really inspired me to like look deeper into the meaning of our names. So I do want to share, like, I took some time to like dissect that, but it was more meaningful recently because now that she's on the other side, now that you all are both on the other side, I was so fascinated with the fact that we got to add your new last name to the name meaning. And I don't know if you will remember this, but I'm just going to read this little excerpt because I just recently looked it up to celebrate you. Since her diagnosis in 2022, our girl has experienced God's healing. We are so honored to celebrate you. Heather Marie Van Cleave Stein, new last name added. She's walked through the fire of breast cancer with unshakable grace and strength. Her very name reflects her journey. Heather, a flower that thrives even in the harshest landscapes, symbolizing resilience. And I remember looking up that picture, and have y'all seen, a blade of grass grow through concrete? Like that's a visual. I want you to understand what's coming up on that. And then Marie, which means rooted in beloved, reminding us of a deep love surrounding her. And then Van Cleave, carrying the strength to cleave or cut through, which embodies her ability to overcome obstacles. And then Stein, the new last name, her married last name, meaning stone, an unmovable foundation of her will.
Wow.
She's also a Taurus, so I just noted that Heather radiates determination, patience, and loyalty, refusing to be shaken by life storms, much like her, Stein's steadfast nature. Literally together, all the qualities paint the story of a woman who has not only battled, but triumphed, and shown us all the beauty of endurance, courage, and an unyielding spirit. So if any of you listening have not taken the time to delve into the meanings of each of your names, I would be so fascinated to hear.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And you all can text us into the show too. Like it's it just helps you really understand like the power of your name.
Yeah.
And
No, that's really cool.
I feel like it's so wild, like how she's lived into each of those things too.
Well,
It's just
yeah,
really cool to
because the
connect
stone
dots.
kind of came at the end too. Isn't that interesting? But yeah, so you just touched on, being a survivor, and we touched on the beginning, but so when were you diagnosed with breast cancer? Had you already done the pageant?
No. So my
Okay.
high mountaintop moment was the Cinderella moment of winning Miss Virginia.
Okay.
And that was in 2021.
Okay.
And out of all of those states,
Yeah.
they had to go compete in Las Vegas for the Miss America title. And that was like one of those, I'm like, okay, God, I'm tapping out of the pageantry. I really don't want to do this, but I had to, as the state title holder, go and compete.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
went in and I ended up winning Miss Fitness out of all of the states in my 40s, from 18-year-olds all the way up to high 50s, I think is where we had the oldest contestant. And I won Miss Fitness out of all those states. And I'm like, okay.
50 states.
What in
all
the
50.
world? So I came home very proud of that title, and I was like, okay, let me see what else I can do in my 40s. And
Yeah.
I've always loved fitness. I've always
Pushed.
admired women that can do these physique competitions and still stay feminine but toned.
Yeah.
So I started training with a trainer, Mary Johnson Fitness. Shout out to her. She was amazing. I've always trained myself because I was a personal trainer back in the day. And so I was like, I need someone else to hold me accountable. Started training with her, gave myself 9 weeks to get in the best shape of my life, but I was already almost halfway there. So as I was leaning out and dieting, I all of a sudden started feeling a lump in my chest, and it was like out of nowhere because, when you get out of the shower, you put lotion on, you're drying off, you notice those things. I
Right.
didn't notice this at all.
Right.
And so I had gone to Daniel and I said, did you notice this lump? And he's like, no. So at the time I was going to get my weekly B complex shots, and I asked my nurse, Bestie Madison, I was like, can you feel this? Because I know your mom had breast cancer, and tell me if this is weird. Should I have this looked at? She had a nurse practitioner that was working with her, Kelly, at the time. Kelly felt it, and she goes, have you had a mammogram yet? And I said, no. She goes, well, I'm going to schedule you one. You need to go right away. And so I was like, okay, well, this is weird. Maybe it's just from the stuff that I'm eating. It was in September. I went and had the mammogram done. Didn't hear from anybody because it was during the holiday. And then they called me and said, I need you to come back in and do another mammogram because you have dense breast tissue. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, we just need you to come back in. I said, well, should I be concerned? And they said, no, you shouldn't be concerned unless the doctor wants multiple images of you and asks you to come back for an ultrasound. I'm like, okay. So I came back in for a contrast dye mammogram, which was Sarah Cannon's first location to have those contrast dye mammograms. Had that done. And the nurse says, the doctor wants to come in and see these pictures. And I'm like, okay. So then she goes, can you do a different angle? And I'm like, okay. And then she goes, I want you to stay for an ultrasound. And I'm like, oh
You're
my
like,
gosh,
there
what
it
is
is.
going on?
There's the word.
So then the
yeah.
And so I
panic
tell her,
set
she's
in.
like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm training for a fitness competition. And she goes, well, I need to do a biopsy of something. And she starts digging in my arm. And I'm going, why are you looking at my arm? It's right here. And she said, I think it has spread to your lymph nodes. And I said, well, can I do a biopsy after I compete in this competition? And she says, yeah, but we need to do it right away. So mind you, end of September, fitness competition. By the way, won third place out of my first competition at MPC, Ben Wider, all naturals. And then I started questioning myself because I said, I didn't take anything that was a supplement that was bad for you. Everything was natural. I ate healthy. I didn't take any steroids, any testosterone, any of those things. What did I do wrong? And the only other thing I could think of was that I had had a vaccine about six months prior. And so I told the doctor all the things. I said, I'm healthy. I've never been sick a day of my life other than normal stuff, but I'm normally really healthy, never broke a bone.
Right.
And she says, well, we need to do the biopsy. They called me from the hospital, and immediately at the biopsy, they said, we've seen the size of your lump in your breast. It looks maybe stage 2, maybe stage 3, but you definitely have 2 or 3 lymph nodes that look infected. We need to send you to a breast surgeon. So I went and saw a breast oncologist, Dr. Deal, huge shout out to him. And he says, actually, it's an aggressive stage 3, and we need to get you in right away. And there's really no other choice than a mastectomy. And so we went and got a double mastectomy. This was October 2022. I'm finding all this stuff out during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So mind you, 2021, highest moment of my life.
Yeah.
2022, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I actually looked at
you're gonna
Daniel.
live
We
through
were only
this.
engaged then. And I said, listen, you didn't sign up for this. This is not who you met. I would not be upset with you if you want to walk away right now, because I'm getting ready to go through a really, really rough time.
Yeah.
And he was like, he's South African, tall, dark, and handsome, and blue eyes. And South Africans aren't always Black. They're white as well. So Daniel is white. I always tell people, because they're like, do you have a dark-skinned Black husband? I'm like, no, but thank you. He's but he looks at me and he goes, woman, what kind of man do you think I am? And I was like, I'm just trying to give you an out. And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. And that was the beginning of a now 3-year journey, 14 surgeries later. It was a huge size of an orange that was in my breast. And 16 lymph nodes were taken out of my arm. So I have had multiple surgeries, multiple issues with my pancreas, with all kinds of different tests coming back with cancer antigens. And I just keep saying, nope, God's not done with me yet. And so I tell people it's a mind, body, and soul thing. I don't look like what I've gone through by the grace of God, but I have been bald. And I had to get fake boobs. And so there goes the title of my story, Bald with Fake Boobs, my battle of breast cancer and the things no one tells you.
Yeah.
So I tried to give a little bit of this and that in the book to encourage people and to inspire them, and to just say, hey, be your own advocate, because there's a lot coming. Whether you know somebody that's going through it or you've been through it yourself, stay positive. Keep your mindset positive. Keep working out. That helps cancer stay at bay. Eat healthy. It's important. Like all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So what kind of, kudos to you. I'm a survivor. I never want to like rank it, but like you had a lot more going on than me. I was stage 2. It had not spread to my lymph nodes. We did chemo before we did a mastectomy to shrink mine down. I had HER2 positive. What type of cancer did you have? Because there's a lot of different breast cancer.
There's a lot of different
and
breast
it's not all
cancers.
genetic. That's what, only 10% is genetic. Because my mom had it. Mine was not genetically related to my mom's. Mine was not hormonal. It was not estrogen driven. Because I was like, did I drink too much alcohol in my 20s?
know.
Like, what did I do? And that's the other messed up thing. It's like, I didn't do anything wrong.
I know.
Just like with abuse. But for some reason, as humans, like my first thought was, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. And that you feel
You know?
all the feelings.
Yeah.
You're questioning things, you're discouraged, you're sad, you're angry, you're confused, all those things. And everybody has a different DNA for cancer. And I was just talking about this to the ladies. I had hormonal breast cancer. They did a gene test. There was no genetics on my side or my dad's side, and there was nothing in me that I could pass down to somebody else. They literally came back with a piece of paper that said, we don't know where your breast cancer came from.
Yeah, that's
And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
So, of course, they had all these plans and procedures, but because of the aggression of my breast cancer, having basically turbo cancer, they didn't really want me to wait and do chemo. They wanted me to do the double mastectomy first and then plan on doing chemo. And I was completely against doing chemo at first. I was like, absolutely not. I'm not putting poison in my body to kill cancer, and then it kills other things.
Right.
But they said everything's a chance. You need to try this, try that, try this. And so half of my family really wanted me to do chemo. The other half was like, don't do it. And so at the end of the day, my now husband, who was my fiance at the time, was really concerned. He said, I love you and I don't want to lose you. So will you please just try something to keep yourself alive?
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll try it. And I had the most aggressive chemotherapy. They gave me the Red Devil, and it was horrible. I had the port put in, and after the second session, my body started to shut down. My organs were shutting down. I turned white as a ghost.
It was wild, I
and
remember.
my husband said to me that he looked at me one day, and I was sleeping, and he thought I was dead. And he said, okay, something's wrong. So I talked to my nurse, and I said, so I feel like my body's dying. And they're like, oh, well, that's not normal. Maybe we should get you off of this. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And they said, well, not everybody's a candidate for chemo, but you don't know until you try it. And so clearly I was not a candidate for that. And I said, okay, as an advocate for myself, we're stopping this now, and we're going to try a different route. They wanted me to do radiation, and I said, nope, if chemo didn't work for me, radiation's not going to work for me either.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that medications don't work very well for me. I don't like taking anything really for my body. I like to let it heal on its own because that's the way it's made to do. Sometimes you have to do after surgery. Obviously, they give you these painkillers, but I don't even like taking those.
Yeah.
All those side effects I normally get. So I'm like, okay, my body doesn't like this. So I'm going to try something else. And so because it was hormonal, I did a full hysterectomy and got thrown into menopause right away.
So you didn't do any more chemo?
I didn't do any more chemo. I didn't do any radiation.
Wow.
I had a full hysterectomy, and we opted for some natural other alternatives to be able to do things that would. It's a chance. Try this, try that. So if chemo is a chance, then this is a chance. I'd rather do something less painful to my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I totally understand. I went through chemo. I could not feel my lump. I could barely feel it after the first treatment. I couldn't feel it anymore after the second. So I responded well. I was like, this is what we're going to do. You know, I will say like too, I didn't even consider not doing it. But now that I've had it and I get targeted all these ads, I'm like, man, I could have gone a very holistic approach. I could have. And when I even say that out loud to my mom, she's like, no. I mean, my mom worked in medical. So chemo was like, this is what you're doing. Right. And but now, you're right. There's lots of things you can do. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but I think you're right. You have to know your body,
own advocate,
and you have to be your own advocate 100%. My dad just went through cancer and he lost his battle, but like,
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But he was older and he had lived a very long life. But, looking back, I don't know that he was in the right treatment. And so you have to
People
advocate
don't know
for
that they
yourself.
can speak up for themselves either.
Right.
Like when I said no radiation, the doctor was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean no radiation? And I said, well, this is my body and I'm choosing not to do
You're
it.
allowed to say that. Exactly.
You are.
Right. And
You
people
are.
think that the doctors,
Tell
you're allowed to say no to anything they
Right.
tell you. I mean, it's pretty interesting the power you realize you have when you go through this, if you treat it that way.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of different things. How mental health played a role in your healing journey. I mean, you're obviously a very strong person, Heather, mentally. But I mean, you've gone through lots of ups and downs, you've said. So how has mental health really
I have. And I've gone through the depression too. During chemo and during breast cancer, fighting that, I got depressed. Like, don't look at me like I'm this Wonder Woman that never felt all those emotions as I did, but I knew how to pull myself out of it without spiraling down that rabbit hole. And honestly, it was my faith that pulled me through everything. Anytime I felt horrible and felt depressed, I would cry out to God and I said, I need your help.
Yeah.
If I'm going to live, I trust you. If I'm going to die, I trust you, but I need your help getting through this because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even recognize myself anymore. When I say I was bald with big boobs, I had no hair anywhere. And I just looked in the mirror and said, who is this?
It's
and
so
like,
scary. It's like terrifying. And then,
girl,
and then
you're
after a
looking so good
mastectomy
now.
and you look and you're
Growing
just
up.
like, oh my
Thank you.
God. I mean, you're totally deformed and mangled at points. I mean,
You are.
it is very hard and very depressing. You're right.
And it wasn't over. Like
Yeah.
I ended up, this is now, I say 14 surgeries, but the 14th surgery was a month and a half ago. I had to go flat for 6 months. I had gotten an infection in the hospital and I had to get the implants removed. And so it was like having a second double mastectomy all over again. And I cried in the shower for the first month because you're looking down and as a woman, there's nothing there anymore that normally was. I didn't fill out clothes anymore. I couldn't even wear a bra. I mean, as a woman, it's very, very breaking to your whole nature.
the boobs
nature,
and the
everything.
hair.
The
and
hair.
that's, I remember saying to my
You're scrolling back
oncologist,
to Maegan.
I was like, I cannot believe tears were just rolling down my face as my then boyfriend was just shaving my head because it was starting to clump out after my first treatment. And I was like, oh my God, let's just shave it off, And as I sat there and I was like, I cannot believe I'm this emotional about it.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. In our society, it's like you are so attached to like the aesthetics of yourself, right?
Yeah, and it's just hard when you don't recognize that anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a younger woman, I was very voluptuous naturally, and I had a breast reduction done when I was in my 20s because I was so large. But actually having them taken without my choice was a
different.
whole
When it's
different
forced.
ballgame.
Totally different.
And so I said, okay, if I can get through 6 months of clean tests and clean scans, people were like, "Are you going to get implants back again?" Absolutely, I will, because that wasn't my choice to have them taken out. So I had my surgery about a month and a half ago and had some new girls put in, and I feel like I fill the clothes out again, which is good. And you feel normal again. So that was
Have
the
we
thing.
named them? Are
Yeah.
Are we still doing a book sequel?
These are just the twins.
The twins.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, all right. So we're going to start to wrap up a little bit here. So let's talk about, are there any, tell us about what are the upcoming projects you're excited about? Anything current you're working on? Anything you'd like to tell the audience about here today?
Yeah, I do all
Yes.
kinds of different stuff. So I was explaining when people say, what do you do? I'm like, well, I do a lot of
A
stuff.
lot.
What do I do? So I'm in regional property management. I work for an amazing company that has been such a blessing to me. They do development, property management. They have houses and rental properties. That's my normal 9 to
Okay.
And then on the side, I'm a contributor for CBS 6, for
Yes.
Richmond Times Dispatch, for Lee Enterprises, and for all these businesses in the community that need an influencer to be a voice for them. God's given me a voice. Heather Marie Speaks is not my last name. It's just what I do. And that's my platform. And so I go out there and I speak for different businesses and different news stations to kind of be just a filler, a contributor for all the different things that they need to fill that void. That's what
love
God's
that.
kind of put me in the position
Those
to do.
categories. I love that too.
Yeah, and I love being able to be an ambassador for the American Cancer Society and for the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation.
Yes.
Which are two very different organizations for the same cause. So I'm a voice for both of them. I do things for both of them. But upcoming this Saturday is the walk, the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Walk
Yes.
on the 18th at 9 o'clock at Monroe Park. I'll be there on the stage with my friend Reba from CBS 6 and just really hyping people up for this walk because it helps so many people.
Yeah.
The Heather Marie Speaks team is the number 2 out of 322 teams.
Wow.
We have raised a lot of funds with some help of some amazing businesses. My husband's business, IGS, is a sponsor as well. So just really excited
That's
to be
so
able
cool.
to be a part of this amazing just a movement in Richmond. It's a huge,
Very
huge
exciting.
movement. Yeah.
Very
So,
exciting. Thank you for all you
Yeah.
do for the community, Heather, and
you.
for breast cancer
Yes.
awareness and for domestic abuse
awareness.
survivors
Yeah,
awareness. I mean, it's
absolutely.
amazing everything you do. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
energy. We've loved having you on today. And yeah, definitely think about Heather's words to the wise, positive attitude and
never, never, never give up.
never, never, never give up. There's your words to the wise today, people. So keep building it brick by brick. And until next time, we'll see you later, guys.
Yes.
Have a
And thanks
good
for joining
day.
us on 8 News, Heather.
Check us out.
Thank you,
Add it to
guys.
the list.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.